So welcome back to Tara Institute. My name's Damien, and this month I'm talking about karma, or cause and effect. And last week we just talked a little bit in general about, the life, the universe and everything, or whatever. So I think it's worthwhile to, in a way, to go right to the very basics of our existence and think, I am some sort of, the term we use in Buddhism is sentient being, a knowing, a being with a mind, the sentient, possesses sentience. So I am a sentient being, and the world is actually full of sentient beings. All sorts of humans, animals, and where we might draw a line between what we think is sentient and what we think is not sentient. It doesn't matter much, in a way, where we draw that line, but the reality is that we perceive a huge variety of sentient beings, of living beings, humans, dogs, cats, elephants, giraffes, whatever, everything. All sorts of worms, insects, creatures, birds, things, fish, funny-looking fish, all sorts of things. And we can say they are sentient. They possess a mind, and we can determine that by observing their behaviour. So what we've then got, we've got this world with this huge variety of sentient beings who experience happiness and they experience suffering, they experience joy and they experience pain to varying degrees, right? There's this colossal sort of spectrum of different living beings. So, independent of any religious or philosophical or any other construction, it's sort of a reasonable question to ask, how come my situation is so good? Why is my situation so good? And if you think your situation is not so good, then all you have to do is start digging up your backyard or stick your head into a sewer and have a look, and you'll see that there's all sorts of sentient beings living in really unsatisfactory, suffering, terrible conditions. And they are sentient in the same way that I am sentient. Dogs and cats, we might think that a dog's life is a great life, I was talking to somebody on the weekend last few days, and I was saying, the joy of being a dog, the this and that, and so simple, this mental problems that we create. But the reality is, if we examine the life of dogs and cats and birds and scorpions or whatever it is, we look and we have a look at the animal world, the fish world, insects, all these beings who do experience joy and happiness and suffering and pain. We can see that. So the question is, why am I so blessed to have such a good life? How did that happen? As a human, we have an incredible opportunity. We have this combination of intelligence and all sorts of different faculties that enable us to be, relatively, to be in control of our lives, to be in control of our experience of life. And we might see some animals that we think were incredibly fortunate, incredibly powerful. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking of black caviar, the horse. So incredibly respected and valued, and accomplished a great deal in something that everybody respected and looked up to as what an accomplishment. But her passing just in the last few weeks revealed that she had no power over her own life, and since the end of the racing career was just totally manipulated and pressured without any ability to say no into a situation that ended up killing her. And that's one characteristic of animals, is that they have cows and horses and that in the paddocks. They're fenced in, they didn't have any say in that, and they're fenced in, and they have no shade, and the sun comes out and the cold wind comes up, and they can't do anything about it. They can't go and knit themselves a sweater and put it on, or they can't grab a blanket themselves and throw it on. Like a horse, they have blankets for horses, but the horse can't put it on himself. So there's this sort of powerlessness that many creatures are subject to. But we have incredible ability and power over our life. How we think, how we act, how we can arrange our circumstances. And even though we might think, oh, life is so tough, it's this and that, have a look around at all these other sentient beings, and you can see that as far as sentient beings go, we have a pretty good life. Okay, so the question is, how did you get that life? Like this is the $64 million question that human civilizations have been trying to answer forever. Once you start thinking about it, you think, how did I get this life? Right? It wasn't, I can say it wasn't my doing. There's nothing, I can't sort of say, yeah, on the 5th of September in 1961 or 1983 or whatever, yeah, I created this. I didn't. This circumstance that I have, if we look on it as simply, you think, I did not create this. And all of those suffering animals that are in the bottom of the ocean and all that, if they have the thought, did I create this? Did I choose to have this life at the bottom of the ocean being chased by barracuda every minute of the day? Did I choose this? And they'd say, no, I didn't choose this. I didn't create this. Nobody would want to create that. So this is the sort of the question that really, once you start thinking about it, and that's why humans have created all these different theories, and whether they invented religion to try to answer this question, or whether they invented philosophies, or they just went straight for the whiskey and ignored it. Whatever we did to try to deal with this question, that question still exists. So, from a Buddhist point of view, you ask this question, and you can make a choice. My situation has a cause, or it does not have a cause. No, they're the choices. It's a dichotomy. Everybody's situation in life, the whole world, every worm, snake, tortoise, whatever, human, all the different varieties of human experience, they all have a cause, or they do not have a cause. They're the choices. So for me then, going forward, if I have some goals to achieve or some thought about what I might be capable of, and how would I bring that into being? How would I bring in a good future? So let's say even in this life, how would I bring in a good future? And then particularly thinking, if you accept that there's a continuum of a person, that the person continues from one life to the next life, that whatever my future destiny is, for that to be a good destiny, do I have an ability to create a good future destiny? Is there actually a pathway where a good future destiny can be caused or not be caused? Is it a flick of a coin, a toss of a die? What are the options? So, and this is really why Buddhism says cause and effect rules. Cause and effect operates. And so my life, this life that I have, this human body, this wealthy environment, this good environment that we have here in Australia, in Melbourne, it has a cause. It's not random. It's not at the whimsy. It's not at the whimsy of somebody in Google who's manipulating the whole world. There's no such controller. It's got a cause. And so this particular life, me as Damien, I did not create this life. But somehow my prior continuum has created this human life and this wealthy circumstance. Okay, and so I mentioned this a little bit last week about the concept of feeling gratitude to your own past, for creating this circumstance. To really strongly feel that, if I am responsible for the total continuum of Damien over, let's say, over millions of lives, and right at the moment, it's my responsibility. So here I am, I've benefited from all the previous me's. I've benefited from their actions. And am I going to drop the ball, or am I going to keep the ball rolling? How can I create a good life for the next me in the next life? So there's sort of a sense of responsibility there. But anyway, so, and we can look through all the other possibilities. We can say, no, none of that's true. It's totally bound up in your genetics. It's your mother and your father. Your mother and your father have given you all of this. By them coming together and giving birth to you, that's where it all comes from. Right? Entirely. But we can examine that as well, whether that's true. They've certainly the constituents of my body have absolutely come from my mother and father, and there is a good argument to say I should be incredibly grateful for that. But when it comes to all the circumstances of my mind, it's very hard to see that, my unique mind, my unique being is neither my father nor my mother, nor a mixture of my mother and father. There is a uniqueness. And so we mentioned it a little bit last week. The Buddhist sort of idea is that at the time of conception, certainly the mother gives the egg and the father gives the sperm, and that there's all this, genetics involved, but the consciousness comes from somewhere else. So that's the sort of the Buddhist presentation, that absolutely the mother and the father give the ingredients for the body, but the consciousness comes from somewhere else. And so this life is a union of body and mind, and then at the time of death, the mind and the body separate, and we get left with a corpse with no presence of a living being, but still a body. And the living being, the consciousness of the living being has gone. And, you know, if you've seen somebody die, you can get a feeling that there comes a point in time where you actually have the feeling that the person is gone. The body is still there, but the person has left. So, some sense of gratitude for the past. And then, so what Buddhism, so all of that is not, that's not, in a sense, all of that discussion is not Buddhism as a practice, that's just reality. You know, our life situation and the life situation of all the different sentient beings in the world is just reality. So then when we start to talk about what does Buddhism say as a philosophy or as a practice, we say, you know, what is the cause? What is the cause of this good human life? You know, what is the cause of this good human life? What is the cause of this comfortable, wealthy environment with very little harm from others, with plenty of food and drink, good air, good environment? You know, do all of these things have a cause? So when we can sort of keep applying this same mentality that, you know, are all these circumstances just random occurrences, like you're winning the lottery, that every day you're winning the lottery and there's good circumstances, but nothing to do with cause and effect, just some sort of come out of thin air for no reason? Or does all of this actually have a cause? So that's, I think, before we start really talking about the mechanism of what Buddhism presents, you know, what Buddhism presents as the real mechanism of cause and effect. Really, before I go into that sort of detail, in your mind, I'd really like you to think, you know, like come to a sort of a point in your thinking. What do I think? Is this just some lucky lottery? You know, that I just happen to be here, and it's not that great. You know, you think, oh, it's not that great. I've got all these problems, and I don't care about the fish in the ocean. I don't care about the insects or whatever. They're nothing to do with me. But my situation's no good, it just sort of happens like this. I think it's worth sort of really in your mind trying to come to a conclusion. What do I think is actually going on in the world? You know, like with all these different living beings and all of these different circumstances, what is actually going on? You know, so to think over and over again, what do I think is happening? Is there a cause for any of this? And is there a cause? Is there a cause for my own future being good? Being a good future? Is there a cause? And if there is a cause, what is it? So these are the big questions. So then this is where Buddhist practice comes in. They say, okay, the cause for a good human life, the primary cause for a good human life is the practice of morality, which means which primarily means not harming others. The primary cause for a human body is morality, not harming others. And so as a result of that, we have this with this human body, and in general, we have a circumstance, as a human, in general, you can say we have a circumstance of not being harmed by others. Not being harmed by others. And then the second cause that we have is we have good environment, good food, drink in abundance, clothing, housing, cars, aeroplanes, everything. We have all of these supporting conditions, and the primary cause for that is the practice of generosity. So the practice of morality creates this human life. The practice of generosity creates this physical good environment, good circumstances, good things for myself. And then Geshe Doga just recently sort of said also that our ability to even to sit and meditate, if we can sit and meditate and develop some discriminating wisdom from that practice, that also is not particularly something that is just created now, but it is also an indication of having practiced concentration in the past as well. And these are all things that we can think about. There's no reason for you just to accept that straight up, but to actually then you can examine that. So this is really the challenge, is to start off with, in your own mind, thinking, does this have a cause? And does my future have a cause that I can enact? Is there something that I can do that can create a good future for myself? And so in Buddhism, in a way, we look at this situation, and I think this is a good situation. If you think, there's 7 billion humans in the world, or 8 billion humans in the world, and our situation is pretty good amongst that 8 billion. That's point number one. Point number two is that of the trillion, 2 trillion, 10 trillion living beings on the earth, however many there are, I don't know how many there are, but of that 2 trillion beings on the earth, however many there are, where am I? We're right at the top of a good living situation. And you think, how did that happen? I didn't do it. Like me right now, I didn't do that. And that's why thinking about cause and effect, if I come to the conclusion, well, whatever it is, there's a cause. To return again and again to this sort of question, there's a cause or there's not a cause. It's a random whimsy of no cause, or it's some external somebody controlling everything, and so I have no say. Go through all of the possibilities in your mind. Think about all of the possibilities, and then if you come to a point where you think, okay, I accept that there is cause and effect, then you can sort of approach this topic of karma with a confidence where you're looking for, what is the cause? What is the result? Does that fit in with my circumstance? Does it make sense? So we can start to, for instance, read what Buddhism says about this, and then examine whether we think it's correct or not correct. So one of the terms that's used, and so in relation to me as a human, there is what's called a throwing karma, which is the taking of this as a rebirth, the taking of a human, the becoming a human. That's called a throwing karma, because it's sort of like it's thrown into this life from some previous life. So it's a throwing karma. And then that gives me a human life. And as we can see, not all human lives are equal in terms of their health, their wealth, their circumstances, their lack of fear, or their lack of persecution or opportunity, education, so many different factors. The 8 billion humans on the earth are not equal in terms of their opportunity. So why is my opportunity so good? And so the second aspect is called the completing karma. So once I have a human life, then there's other cause and effect circumstances that have to occur so that I have good health, I have an education, I have safety and security, I have good friends, I have good parents, I have meet the Dharma, like find Buddhism or find a religion, find a good friend, find anything. So that's called completing karma. So we are very fortunate in that we have a good throwing karma and good completing karma. Because we can look around the world and we can see, even probably 50 metres from here, people who have a good human life, but their completing karma is not so good. Very mentally disturbed, or very disabled, or very sort of really unfortunate or something. And all of us, our karmas are mixed. We have this mixed situation. We have good and bad. But every element of that good and bad has a cause. And that's really the challenge, to try to understand what that is. And so when we look forward, when we go forward and we think, well, I like this life. If I have a choice, I wouldn't mind another one just like this. We might say that. Or just like this, or even better. Something better, without this problem or without that problem. And so if we have that aspiration or that goal, we have to then say to ourselves, well, how do I create that? What do I need to do to create that in the future? And really that is what Buddhist practice is all about, is trying to understand this circumstance and then looking forward and thinking, how do I create a good future? How do I realise my potential and make a better life for myself and not a worse life for myself? So, to sort of embark on that, to start asking those questions and then to increase our knowledge and understanding to be able to do something about it. And to some degree, the fact that we have this life and these good circumstances, part of the whole karmic presentation is that those good causes that have created this have also created in us a disposition to repeat those good causes. And that's why, to some degree, we start to push back on this whole theory. We say, oh, but it's natural for people to be kind and considerate to each other. It's natural for people to be generous. It's natural for people to have love and compassion for others. It's natural for people to be patient, But because we possess that disposition, because that's also part of the causes that our previous life has given us as an inheritance, is the disposition towards these good qualities. And so we take them for granted. We take them for granted that we have basically an attitude of not harming others, of living harmoniously, of being generous, of being patient, of not being violent. We have all these dispositions, and we think that's just a natural part of being alive. But it also is something that our previous life has created for us, is those good dispositions, and we cannot take them for granted. So that's another problem, is that we assume they are inherent within us. But they also are something that has been created in us by this past person. And if you look at a scorpion or a snake, you think, well, it doesn't have those dispositions. But it is also a sentient being. It's a being with a mind. But all those good dispositions are absent. And so this shows you that whatever the past circumstances are for each type of life, in addition to the body and the mind, there are also this collection of dispositions. And we should really value our good dispositions and try to enhance them. So this will all come up when I talk about some of the technical explanation of karma. But to consider these things is really valuable. So we'll do some meditation. And is anybody here for the very first time tonight? Good. Yeah, welcome. Yeah. So, and have you done some meditation before? Or, yeah, great. So we're just going to, initially we'll just focus on the breath. And the object I like to talk about is the sensation. There's lots of different breathing meditations, but the sensation of the breath as it goes in and out through the nostrils in a relaxed, just your relaxed normal breathing. And ideally when we meditate, we try to focus on the awareness of the breath. So our focal object is the awareness of the breath, not necessarily the physical sensation. Okay, so that's something to think about, that we're trying to have a mental object, just the awareness, the appearance of the breath to our mind. That's what we're focusing on. And so in the meditation, when we get to that point, just 100% keep your focus on that object with no distraction, no mental discussion, just as much as you can, just absorbing your mind into that awareness of the breath. So, first of all, become aware of what your mind is thinking about, where it is, and bring it inside yourself. Let all of the outside thoughts and objects disappear, and bring the mind completely within yourself, and let all of the thought drop away from your mind until you have like a space of no thought. And then turn your attention to the breathing. And keep your focus on the breath 100%. and relax your concentration a little bit. And just examine what happened in your meditation. So, with an honest look at your meditation, to see how distracted you were, or sleepy, or whatever happened, daydreaming. And then thinking that it is really important for me to get control over my mind. You know, I need to have the power of concentration to be able to really create the causes that benefit me. I need to have the ability to be focused and to concentrate. And so let's just repeat the same meditation for another few minutes, but with a strong determination to be 100% focused, and then to be 100% focused on the breath. So just repeat the meditation. So once more, just relax your concentration. And again, examine what happened in your meditation. And then, so let's just once more, for a very short time, repeat the meditation, and again thinking of why it's beneficial to meditate. You know, have as broad and expansive a motivation as you can generate for the need to develop concentration, and with a really strong determination to keep your mind 100% on the breath, you know, right throughout the meditation. We'll just do another minute or so. So just again, entering the meditation and keeping your focus on the breath. And then relaxing your mind. So there's two main types of meditation. One is called single point concentration or concentration meditation, which is what that breathing meditation falls into that grouping. And then the other type of meditation is called analytical meditation, where we use our intelligence to examine a topic. And so in the meditation we stay within the confines of that topic. You know, we pick a topic and we stay within the confines of that topic, and we use our intelligence to examine that topic. So let's just for a minute or two, we'll do a little meditation where, so the question is, the life that I've got, this life or your life. So in your meditation think, how does my life fit into the panorama of all of the types of lives on earth? You know, if you think of all of the types of existences on earth, all of the different creatures, all of the different animals, fish, birds, whatever, you know, just check, how does my life sit in that panorama of lives? So using the analysis that we discussed earlier, in a way, just have a look, examine, how does my life stack up, you know, in terms of all of the possible lives on earth. So just spend a minute or two examining that question. Looking at your circumstances and the circumstances of all other living beings. And you can just then relax your mind. So these meditations don't have to be very long. I mean, it can be beneficial to do a long version, but chances are you can get very distracted. So we can keep them short. And so we'll just do one more. So, and now we look at so in this meditation again, we look at our circumstances and in your mind, sort of ask yourself, do I think this has a cause? You know, what do I think? Does it have a cause? Does it not have a cause? Is it some sort of random whimsy? Is it, you know, is it this? Is it that? So you look at all of the possibilities, using your intelligence to examine this question, and use whatever reasons you like to establish in your mind what you actually think. You know, so to use your reasoning power and your intelligence just to examine this question. Examine all of the possibilities. And if you can, come to a conclusion. But just using your intelligence to examine this question. So again, let's spend a couple of minutes on this. And once again, just relax your concentration. or keep going if you can. So we have some time now for discussion or questions, if you want to share what you think about this, that'd be great. So, just to try to clarify, are you sort of leaning towards the idea of there being a universal purpose or something?
Yeah, like, joy, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like to think so.
Yeah. That there's some reason behind everything. Yeah. Well, it's good. You got to start. You got to establish your own thinking on this, and work from there. Yeah. Yes, Sue.
I was thinking about animals and other sentient beings, and how, compared to our lives, they have a more of a literal fighting survival of the fittest. They seem to their lives, just imagining birds, and their lives are literal survival. Whereas I think that humans, or certainly our circumstance, we're very protected. So we don't have to, well, we still have to survive, but it's very, very different. It's a very different method, and it seems that their need to survive is paramount.
Yeah.
It's much harder than it is for us.
Yeah. So the observation is about animals being really driven by the need to survive and battling for survival. Yeah, so certainly Buddhism, when Buddhism talks about humans and animals, what they say is typical of an animal is that the animal is working constantly from instinct, that it's instinctive. So humans have the Sanskrit term for human is, I think it's paruka or something, but it basically means the ability to think and understand, is the characteristic of a human, something very special. But animals work from instinct, and, of course, there's poodles with diamond necklaces, so we can talk about, this is in the context of what they call throwing karma and completing karma. There's the examples of a coiffured poodle with a diamond necklace, poor throwing karma, but fantastic completing karma, And so we can sort of use that analysis when we talk about things. But in the basic principle is that animals are constantly living in fear of being eaten, constantly, and that is such a pervasive experience for animals. And I must say I felt quite sad with the death of Black Caviar and what's happened to her in the last 10 years. I found it quite sort of really, like I was a bit shocked by that she had even winning millions of dollars for the owners and all that in the end she had no comfortable retirement, but just treated like a foal factory, so, and it's interesting that So a throwing karma as a horse, and the completing karma, you think, won millions of dollars and well looked after by vets and masseurs and best food, best everything, but still had no power over her own life, So anyway, that's just something to consider. Yeah.
Is there a possibility that we could be, I was working out in the garden today, and there were lots of spiders and lots of ants, and just by walking across the grass and killing them
Yeah.
without knowing. And so to want to go through life not wanting to hurt another sentient being, it's all well and good, but just getting in the car and driving.
Yeah.
Birds flying into it.
Mm.
All the acts. Well, we're destroying sentient beings whether we want to or not. I just wondered how Buddhism uses that example.
Yeah, so the question is about, like when you're gardening, even just walking across a field or whatever, you're killing insects, spiders, ants, whatever. You drive your car, you're killing birds, kangaroos, wombats, cockatoos, just to name a few things I've hit in my life, so not to laugh about it. So there's, it's really undesirable, the fact that we are killing things all the time. That's very undesirable. But slightly better than that is, or slightly worse than that, is to actually have the intention to kill, right? So there's a bit of a difference between, walking along a path, looking where you're going and inadvertently killing ants, to walking along a path and intentionally killing ants, slugs, spiders, snails, whatever, as you walk, intentionally. So Buddhism does make a difference, but there is still a problem with the fact that our existence is so connected to basically killing other beings, whether with what we eat, with the clothes we wear, with the way we transport, building a house. Impossible not to kill things, So, and this is the problem of our existence. This is a problem. The suffering existence everywhere, but intention is important. We have to overcome the intention to kill. That's important. Yeah.
What level of skill, single point of concentration skill is required before you can really start incorporating the analytical meditation? How good was your concentration before you could really, because I've been doing single point of concentration practice, like 10 minutes every day for about a year, and trying to do any analytical, it's just, I just go back to breath.
Yeah, so the question is how much concentration ability do we need to have to do analytical meditation? Well, okay, how did people find those two little analytical meditations? You saying you couldn't? Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, look, whoever invented the idea that you should meditate for 15 minutes hasn't meditated in a way. Like the reality is for us as beginners, and like Buddhism says, if you can string 3 breaths together as a beginner, good on you. That's good. So to artificially set a target like 15 minutes is probably unwise. And that's why I kept those meditations quite short. And I think the feeling in the room with the second meditation is people wanted to keep looking at it, which is good. But in general, you have to be quite conservative as to how long you can meditate. But in terms of developing concentration, so the stages of single point concentration into what they call calm abiding. Calm abiding. There's 9 stages of that meditation, and the first stage is to be able to meditate for 21 breaths. I think it's 21 breaths or a minute or something, without any distraction. Now, initially you might think, oh, that's not that hard. I can count to 21. I can count to 21. But the reality is, when you start watching your mind, you will see that within a fraction of a second, your mind is already wandering. And you may not even be aware, initially you're not even aware. You might think, oh, I've just done 20 minutes meditation. But the reality is you've been all over the place with your mind. So the first stage is being able to hold your concentration for a minute or something without any distraction. And that really means, like, even without having any sensation from your body or anything, like totally focused. But, we do what we can, and we analyse, we use our intelligence and we analyse as best we can. So we shouldn't just think, I'm only going to do concentration meditation until I get to a certain level, and then I'll start doing the analytical. We should actually be working together, those two things together all the time. So particularly with these questions, I think this question, do I believe in cause and effect? Like I might say I believe in cause and effect, but do I actually believe in cause and effect? Particularly in regard to my own circumstance. And so, like this question that came up last week about unfairness, in my experience, like nobody likes me, it's so unfair. Well, there's a chance you're contributing to that, so these are the things to meditate on, like in analytical meditation. Nobody trusts me. Everybody thinks I'm lying all the time. Well, maybe there's a cause. So, yeah.
I had a question around, you mentioned disposition to moral behaviour and how that can lead to a better in the future. But how does that moral behaviour eventually transmute into, I guess, breaking the cycle of samsara?
Yeah, so the question is about, this idea of we having a disposition, and we may have a disposition to not harming others, like to have morality as a disposition, And that's, I think, as a human, to some degree, we all have that to some level. And the question is about how does that disposition towards morality, does it or how does it lead to basically finally overcoming cyclic existence, or this circling of birth and rebirth. Okay, so it's a good question. So morality itself does not create the wisdom that can free us from cyclic existence. But, so there's a thing called the 3 higher trainings in Buddhism: morality, concentration, and wisdom. And so morality is the basis for developing concentration. And so to understand that immorality, or let's say harming others, so killing, lying, stealing, sexual misconduct, divisive speech, all these different negativities, to understand that fundamentally they disturb our mind. Fundamentally, the lack of morality is a disturbance. And if that disturbance is present, we cannot generate concentration. So that's why they say that morality, not harming others, gives us a mental peace that then can become the basis for concentration. And once we have developed a high level of concentration, we are then able to meditate on the nature of reality and develop the wisdom of emptiness, what they call the wisdom of emptiness. And it's on the basis of the wisdom of emptiness that we are able to break the repeating cycle of rebirth through the force of karma. So that's the path. That's the description of the path. So morality in itself is not the cause for breaking the cycle of samsara or of cyclic existence, but it is an essential basis to develop concentration and wisdom, which is the cause to be able to end cyclic existence. So, yeah, good question. Okay, it's just after 9 o'clock. We'll finish there. And so thank you very, very much. And let's just what we call dedicate. So coming together and examining these questions, everybody paying attention and then doing those meditations is something really rare and precious. And so we imagine this is like a ball of white light. Everybody's what they call merit or virtue. We've created virtue in doing this. And imagine that comes above your own head and then completely dissolves into you. So visualize that. A ball of white light comes above the crown of your head and completely dissolves into you and fills your body and your mind with this clarity and clearness. And then thinking of the situation of every living being and seeing how every living being is suffering. Imagine that just this myriad of rays of light go out from your body to every living being, and you bring them into happiness and freedom from suffering. And to your family and friends in particular, imagine giving them the benefit of this class. And then let all that light absorb back into you. So thank you very much for coming. I'll be here again next week. We continue on. And Carla's in the bookshop tonight. If you'd like to go in there, and there's some cake, and we can have a cup of tea and coffee in the dining room if you'd like to stay. So thank you very much.